Have you ever received a phone call that made your heart drop? When things matter the most, especially when they're urgent, it's incredibly powerful to know how to pause. I had to learn how to do that. And it wasn't until I got a call that my husband had been shot that I began to understand just how powerful that really was. So today I'm going to share with you how you finding your way to pause can really help you be better in any situation and ultimately change your world. The day had started as a typical Thursday. I got the kids out the door to the bus and was getting my things to head into work. My husband was traveling. Mornings were usually mine anyhow, as that's part of how we balanced our household with both parents being FBI Special Agents. As I was walking out to my car, I got a call from one of his SWAT teammates. They were out on an early morning operation in a remote location. My husband never called me until long after an op had finished. So a call from a teammate was unexpected and not going to be good news. I learned that he'd been shot, but his body armor had saved his life, and he was in the hospital. This is what I did then. Doesn't look like much, does it? But to me in that moment, it was everything. I took a big breath with a bigger exhale, a skill I'd been learning. And in that moment, I was able to bring my mind and my body back together and ground myself so I could begin to do what I needed to do. Now, this was a new skill for me because it was something that was part of a transformation I'd begun about 6 months earlier while climbing this beautiful mountain in Washington State. I was there because of a grad school class, Leadership and Hardiness at Gonzaga University. Now, that class ended up changing my life, but I took it originally because I wanted to climb this mountain. So choosing a class because I got to do a mountain climb pretty well sums up my driven nature. Leading up to this, I'd spent more than 25 years in these always-on environments, where it's always more work to be done. I was often working to prove myself worthy of just being there, and I was driven by this sense of duty to perform at these highest levels. My initiation into these worlds began 33 years ago as a cadet at West Point, the nation's oldest military service academy. Following that, I served as an Army officer for 8 years, stationed on 3 different continents and twice leading soldiers in deployments in the Balkans. And then I joined my husband in the FBI, where we served coast to coast together for 20 years while raising 2 kids along the way. We were a bit of a rarity as dual agent parents, given our high operational tempo and 24/7 demands. But we were both fueled by this purpose-driven mission and great colleagues who were similarly dedicated. So we did what it took to make those careers work. So by the time I was on this mountain, I pretty much mastered, or so I thought, this ability to push through almost anything. Yet, as I was approaching the summit, I was nearly overcome with a feeling of dread about having to go back down. Because going back down meant going back to work. And going back to work, well, I had realized I needed to leave my leadership role. A role I had once loved, had worked years to achieve and then build, and around which I had wrapped a lot of my identity. I was just exhausted from everything. And it wasn't like a physical exhaustion. It was like I needed an emotional, mental, and cognitive break. Christina Maslach from UC Berkeley has been a pioneer in our understanding of occupational burnout for more than 40 years. And she's identified 3 primary markers of it: emotional exhaustion, lack of professional efficacy, which is our belief that we're doing well, and cynicism. Thankfully, I never got the cynical part. So I don't think I was in full-on burnout, but I was exhausted. And I wasn't doing much, including leading at my best. I now know I'm lucky I caught it when I did, but that didn't help me feel any better at the time. I remember driving away from that mountain the next day, just in silence for my first couple hours, weighted down by this decision because I had never quit anything. I did have some really good, important things going for me that got me through, I believe. A great family, strong spiritual core, and physical fitness. But I also recognized I needed more. So when I got back to work that next week, I began the uncomfortable process of navigating into a different role. And I started to explore anything that I heard might help. Talk about navigating the unknown. Looking back, everything that worked for me was about me learning to pause. Here are a few of the things I started. I began to practice mindfulness meditation in earnest. I had previously tried it and hated it. I had said, my mind is too busy for this. I'm too busy for this. So I would try to do it while biking or running. I don't know, I guess to multitask my meditation. Yeah, that didn't go so well. So the second time around, I really committed to learning it, and it was just as tough. But I stuck with it. And in time, I started to notice a difference. It wasn't anything major at the beginning, but just enough to make me curious and keep me going. Second, I learned about the autonomic nervous system and recognized that I was very heavily on the side of that sympathetic fight or flight. I needed a way to get back across this continuum into the parasympathetic, which I like to think of as parachute for rescue or calming. To do this, I began to explore breath work. I started to experience this incredible ability to impact my physiology and mental states just through my breath. This helped me to wrangle in some of my anxious tendencies and to actually be more engaged in whatever I was doing. And third, I learned about positive psychology, the scientific study of human flourishing. And within this, I found special peace in the science of gratitude. As part of this, I would hunt the good stuff during my days, and at night, journal about 3 good things that had happened during the day. And as I did this, I started to realize it was the simple and small things that actually make life so wonderful, not the affirmations or accomplishments I'd been seeking. So 6 months into this journey, the day I got that phone call about my husband really had started as just another Thursday, but served as a powerful sign that I was changing. Now, people recognized the difference in me before I realized it myself. And in the days and weeks that followed, they started to ask me what I'd been working on and if I could help them. And I began to notice that when I shared what I'd been doing and why, their eyes would often get watery with emotion about what they were holding deep inside. Because it turns out I was not the only leader who needed to learn how to pause. It's not just in law enforcement and the military. My ongoing work with a spectrum of professions from education, medicine, manufacturing, tech, government has continued to drive this collective need we have to find a better way to perform sustainably. While the causes of workplace burnout and exhaustion might be different, the result's the same. We are grinding and wearing ourselves out. It is unsustainable, and we're losing good leaders because of it, and we know it. A couple of years back in Microsoft's Work Trend Index study, they found that more than half of managers feel burned out, and those that had the 3 markers were more than 5 times as likely to leave their company. In Deloitte's annual Well-Being at Work survey in 2024, they found that around 2/3 of managers and C-suite said they would seriously consider leaving for another company that would better support their well-being. So we soldier on, finding ways to get through each day, whether we're dealing with true crises or the insidious but often self-imposed micro-stresses that make us feel like we're in crisis all day when it really is just another Thursday. In either case, taking moments to kind of reset, deflate some of that throughout your day can help. But it would be unhelpful for me to imply that each of us strengthening our coping mechanisms is going to solve our burnout crisis. A couple years ago, Forbes popularized this sentiment that you can't yoga your way out of burnout. Now, I love yoga. I'm a yoga instructor, and it absolutely has a place in this conversation. This is a critical, bigger point. We've got to get to the root causes and quit putting it on individuals to find ways to endure. These are multifaceted issues that'll be solved only with multifaceted solutions, and leaders are key to this. These efforts must be led by healthy, intentional, insightful, and present leaders at every level, formal and informal, who model the way. Not exhausted ones who are barely holding on, and never even seem to have time to go to the wellness trainings that their companies offer. An unwell leader serves no one well. There is a better way, and none of you should ever have to leave a leadership role to recover from it. We need you, and we need you at your best. So if nothing else, I do hope this talk serves as a cautionary tale before you get there. So the better way, leaders, I'm going to ask you to focus on your mind, specifically building in a daily practice or a regular practice. I know you've got a lot on your plates already, but I look at well-being on the personal well-being side in 4 buckets: mind, body, spirit, and relationships. The mind is the toughest one, so we often neglect working on that. We don't know if it's working. We can't see it. We don't really feel our efforts right away. At least maybe we get frustrated when we start. But remember, I had the other 3, a great family, strong spiritual core, physical fitness, and I still got to where I was because I'd never done any work up here. And once I did, it was a total game changer for me. Because I put in that work, I came back better as a leader and better as a human being. And this led to the most humbling privilege I've had, which is bringing all of this to life in a 10-week residential education program that the FBI runs with the University of Virginia for the top law enforcement leaders in the world. It's a nearly 90-year-old program called the FBI National Academy. And in my classes, we started with learning to pause. I prioritized this for them because what I'd been finding that helped me reset was also being shown by research to positively impact leadership. Mindfulness meditation, a semi-systematic review by June Dornich and Helen Lynch and published in Frontiers in Psychology, found that among many other things, mindful leaders were better able to sustain their attention and be authentic. Breathwork, research conducted by Melissa Baldwin and her Stanford colleagues, have found that controlled breathwork exercises helped people to improve their mood, reduce their anxiety, and reduce their respiratory rate, which becomes an index or an indication of that balance of the autonomic nervous system, that they're able to shift over into that calming parasympathetic side. And gratitude has been credited by Erica James, the dean at the Wharton School, University of Pennsylvania, as creating virtuous cycles in organizations, opposite the vicious cycles we all know too well. Now, not everything works for everyone, so I encourage you to try out different practices and see what work for you in different circumstances. Some of these you can use regularly to build your overall baseline capacity. These could be your meditation or other mindfulness practices, gratitude, prayer, EFT tapping, or self-hypnosis. Think of these as your body armor to increase your resilience and protection. But sometimes you do need more, though, which is when the in-the-moment practices, maybe breathwork or prayer or a mantra, come in handy. But these are called practices because you have to practice them. But 10 minutes a day is a great place to start. I've been really privileged and inspired to hear back from a number of the leaders I've worked with as they have brought this into practice, and they've proudly told me about the ongoing changes in their own lives, as well as the changes they're leading in their organizations as they operationalize these at scale, increasing retention, well-being, and performance in their world. And in these conversations, I've started to notice a pattern. When a leader gets well, they realize there's a better way. They lead transformation so everyone around them gets better. And this is how leaders, when you focus on your well-being, you too will begin to see and lead a better way. And that is how you change your world. And it's not just your work world. I had started breathwork because I needed to cope with work. But I never imagined at the time that it was going to help me with the thing that was most important to me, my family, until I got that phone call. And that is the true gift of this. This will help you be your best in any circumstance. So before we finish up today, we're going to give this a practice. We're going to do a breath together, which likely you've done before. We're going to have a twist on this one, though. But first, a couple mechanics. If you can, try to inhale through your nose. Now, there are a lot of ways to do breathwork practices. I'm going to show you the one I did at the beginning of my talk, which is what I did when I was standing at my car and I got that phone call. It's very basic. You're just going to kind of inhale from the bottom up, exhale top down. So your belly will inflate as you start your inhale, and then you'll move it up into your lungs all the way up to your collarbone. And as you exhale, you'll reverse that order. Here's the twist. I want you to think of that person. That person that is on the other end of that phone call, or that phone call is about. You've got one breath, one moment to get from that call to who you need to be in that moment. One moment. Let's make it count. Here we go. So begin inhaling, first extending your belly out, expanding it into your ribs, all the way up to your collarbone, and then exhale from the top back down. Collarbone sinks, ribs kind of close in as your belly deflates. Learning to pause is the most powerful thing you can do for a better world for yourself, for those you lead, those you serve, and those you love. And this is how collectively we create a better world. Thank you.